One of the biggest fights that we have to spend a little bit of time talking about, Tony Ferguson versus Beneil Dariush. I mean, what a terrible, terrible loss for Tony Ferguson. Complete and utter domination for
He
a
was
guy
he was
who
close with the Dars. He did almost get that Dars, but
came close. He definitely did.
incredible calmness by Beneil to get out of it. Chance, come on, pal.
Yeah, I mean, but
We have
for
a
a guy
third.
that
We
we
have a
were
third
just
guest
talking
here.
about should focus more on his grappling game. I remember myself saying that last week. You're like, nah, he's
No,
a
you're right. Mm-hmm.
yeah, he needs to focus on his Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. The same thing happened to him against Charles, dominated on the ground. Now it's a second fight against Beneil where he's just getting out grappled by these dudes and they're just putting all their weight on him and he can't move, and we did talk about Tony's mental toughness and submissions. Beneil had him in a crazy heel hook in what was it, the first
Blew his knee apart.
yeah, I don't even know how you come back from an injury like that because his knee is never going to be the same after that. But mental
Well, his
toughness,
elbow was never going to be the same too. After the fight with Charles Oliveira. We
I will
thought
say though that fight against Oliveira, um, he didn't scream at the top of his lungs like it looked like he did in this Beneil fight.
So that being said, a scream counts as a verbal submission. A wince does not. So he must not have let anything verbally out.
Gotcha.
So, he winced like hard twice, and we barely ever see emotion from Tony inside the cage unless he's smiling with someone else's blood all over him.
Right.
So him wince. I mean, he definitely tore his knee apart. Beneil said at the end, he's like, I don't know what's wrong with that guy's head, but his knee popped, and it popped loud, and it popped aggressively. I felt it. I don't know how he didn't tap. Listen, I tweeted this too. Tony is more of like a video game character at this point where like you can hurt him, right? And then a couple seconds later, that health bar kind of fills back up. I don't know what's wrong in this guy's head that he just like can't, he literally, his hand doesn't do this motion or whatever. But listen, I'm good. And I like what Beneil said at the end. He's like, listen, if you're a Tony fan, always root for Tony. You always did. And now that he's down or now that he's not as good as he was, there is something to be said that, these 3 losses, they're not bad losses. I mean, he did get utterly dominated, but in terms of the competition, it's not like he's losing to guys that he really should beat, right? To your point, why did he not work on jiu-jitsu against a guy who was regarded as one of the best jiu-jitsu underrated practitioners in the UFC, definitely in the lightweight division? I mean, you get your Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt in 5 years and win Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. He won, I believe it was a no-gi championship and a gi championship. Beneil did. So when you're going against a guy like that, why are you working your boxing?
Right. This is exactly what I was saying, and I got pushback from you two guys last time. Like, well, he is a black belt. This man is really suffering in the grappling game right now, and this is 2 fights in a row we've seen this from him.
I'd love to see him against, give him a striker, give him someone. I mean, him versus Paul Felder would be a really good matchup. 2 guys that, you give Tony the chance to get off the schneid and maybe work his way back. But again, I don't see Tony at this point in his career, unless this is, just a really, really incredible, unfortunate event. You go against Justin Gaethje, one of the top strikers. You go against Oliveira, one of the if not the top Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu guy, and you have Beneil, who's criminally underrated. It's possible that Tony's taken a step back, but we think it's worse than it is because of the level of competition he's facing. That being said, those guys aren't going away. So if he's losing those 3, Tony's just not a top 5 guy anymore. And it pains us to say that, but neither is Cowboy. And people still love to watch Cowboy fight.
Yeah, and that's the biggest takeaway for me, especially from that press conference afterwards, is like, after Cowboy lost, Dana was like, we're going to give Cowboy one more shot. He deserves it. And when he was asked about Tony, he said, well, Father Time catches up to everybody. I don't know if he's going to get that top 5 fight, anybody in the top 10 really anymore, because he really looks to be down and out. And just back to what you were saying about the verbal scream, that really just kind of speaks to your deep knowledge of the show, of the sport. If you're watching this right now and you're questioning what we know at all, Tom clearly is way more in depth on this sport than I am. I'm still, in terms of, fandom, still a little bit relatively new, but it is tough to tell when there's the crowd in the building again. You know, I got so used to those the Abu Dhabi fights and the Apex fights with no crowd in the building, and you can hear even what these guys are saying to their coaches. You know,
I do miss that.
so yeah, I do kind of miss that to some degree. I like that they're continuing the fight nights in the Apex, but yeah, you know that really speaks volumes to your knowledge, especially of jiu-jitsu. But what do you think is next for Beneil? I mean, I think that they have to really start putting him up against some high level competition because this man has shown what he can do. He's on a crazy win streak now. This is the only one in a couple of fights that's been by decision. I mean, his last couple of wins have either, I think, the 5 wins he had before this, 2 came by knockout, 2 came by submission. Some crazy moves, especially with those knockouts with a spinning back fist. I really think that you can put him up against a guy like Justin Gaethje now. And I think that might be the fight to make.
Well, here's the question. All right, we have a third host today, and it's Chance. He won't leave me alone.
In the hot seat.
Chance, what do you think, pal? Okay. You know, listen, I really don't like what's going on in the lightweight division. You have all these guys who refuse to fight, and that goes for Colby Covington in the welterweight division too, just sitting back and assuming he's going to get, you know, the rematch title shot just because he gave the champ a hard time. You know, Gaethje doesn't even really have that. You know, he got second round submitted by Khabib, and Khabib submitted him via arm triangle because he knew that Gaethje wasn't going to tap in front of his family and didn't want to break his arm.
Yeah.
You know, that shows that when you can have that level of, you know, critical thinking mid-fight against the basically unanimously appointed number one contender, you know, no one's going to hold a candle to Khabib right now.
No.
Why does Gaethje think he can just sit back and wait for his fight, especially so now you have Oliveira with the belt, right?
Yeah.
Oliveira's, should Conor win, you bet your ass he's going to want Conor. Why? Money. You know, at this point, he's got the belt. I believe he's probably his confidence level is at an all-time high. You know, knocking out Chandler, who everyone thought had a superior stand-up game than him. So he knocked out the guy that he was supposed to get KO'd by. So his stand-up game obviously needs credit. You know, it needs its due credit. So yeah, and listen, if I'm Oliveira, I'm like, yeah, give me Conor. I'll take his ass down and I'll submit him. Conor's main weakness, you know, but at least before the Poirier fight, was that he really doesn't have a great ground game. Submitted by Khabib, submitted by Nate Diaz. Yeah, if I'm Charles Oliveira, I'm praying that Conor wins. You know, I think it's an easier fight for Charles. Like, it's a harder fight for Conor against Charles than it would be against Michael Chandler.
I mean, there is
against Michael Chandler, he's got the reach advantage.
Right.
You know, he's probably quicker. He's got that active front leg. You know, not to say that it would be an easy fight, but if we're talking about styles make matchups, dude, if you're Conor, you really don't want Charles Oliveira.
No,
so now Gaethje knows that the odds, if Poirier beats Conor for a second time, well, Poirier has to get the title shot because he's been active. You can't reward somebody who hasn't been active like Gaethje in favor of someone who has been active like Poirier, who clearly deserves it. So yeah, Gaethje has to get somebody. Give him Beneil. He's got to accept some fight. Like, you know, especially with, you know, Trevor Whitman just is on a roll. Why not, you know, emphasize how good, you know, Trevor Whitman has 3 fighters and 2 of them are champions, right? So to have Gaethje just sit back and not do anything, he really needs to get a fight. You know, I don't know how quick Beneil's going to want to turn around here. I mean, he did just have a baby, and I think he said November or December. If I'm Gaethje, I want to get in there now because I want to put my name needs to be in the ring for that championship discussion. And right now it can't be because of his inactivity.
Yeah, well, you have to keep in mind, too, like, who manages Justin Gaethje. It is Ali Abdelaziz. And
of course it is. I'm just going to default to that now. Like, if anyone asks me, like, who manages, probably Ali, you know, probably.
Yeah. I mean, we see this with a lot of the guys that he represents where it's like, oh, title or nothing. You know, and I think that definitely plays a factor when you have a guy like Ali in your ear telling you, like, yo, it's the title shot or you're not going to go out and fight. Justin Gaethje is a big enough name right now. But I also don't think that you can give him a shot at the belt immediately after, you know, he just got beat by the last guy that had the belt. You know, it doesn't really seem fair to people to guys in the UFC that have consistently been coming out, fighting, getting wins, building up their resume. It's tough to put anybody that lost to the last champ up in a title fight right now.
Well, here, yeah, right now. But this is the thing. I thought that Gaethje should have gotten the chance. Gaethje should have been included in that fight. I mean, to give it to Chandler after one, it really should have been Gaethje versus Oliveira. I think was the fight to make.
The whole reason for that, though, is because if anybody that lost to Khabib went in there and won that on Saturday, the automatic argument would have been paper champ, or which is an argument that I kind of have for Oliveira personally, but
it's always going to be an argument because,
how is this guy the deserving champ after losing to the actual champ of the lightweight division? So I kind of see it from the matchmaking perspective, where it's like you don't want to piss off the fans, and you do have to kind of honor and respect Khabib's legacy to some degree as well. Like him and Dana are close friends. I'm sure that there was a little bit of input from Khabib there, where he called him up and was like, yo, what do you think, about this fight? I think that if you throw a guy like Justin Gaethje in there, it does kind of make it seem like they're kind of shitting on Khabib a little bit, where it's like, okay, this guy that you easily, handily beat is now worthy of your title. That's not true, and we all know that.
So, yeah, I don't agree with that take at all.
Yeah, just from a matchmaking perspective, though, because when you think about it, they could have really put anybody out there for this fight. Why did they pick a guy who never fought Khabib, two guys that never fought Khabib? Well, it's for that exact reason.
I mean, listen, I'm not saying that wasn't why they did it. That very well could be. You know what I mean? I'm not saying you're wrong for, thinking that's why they did it. I'm saying I disagree with that whole line of thinking. Yeah. Like, this guy was good enough to fight for the title. Yeah, he got beat by the pound-for-pound best fighter right now, potentially ever. That being said, that guy's no longer in the UFC. We can't think about him anymore. He's not in the UFC. He was good enough to fight for the title 6 months ago. Why is he not now?
Yeah, it's
he's the number one contender. Just because he loses to the best guy ever, that automatically makes him not worthy of the title. I don't understand that line of thinking.
He'll definitely be back. There's no question.
He's got to fight somebody, and I'm telling you, I hate this inactivity that we're seeing from guys like Colby Covington, from guys like Justin Gaethje, from guys like fucking Aljamain Sterling. Don't get me started on Aljo. You want to talk about paper champ? You want to talk about paper champ?
Yeah. That guy, I don't even let him cross my mind anymore. His chirping on Twitter, I'm pretty sure I have him muted at this point because it's just so arrogant for no reason. The guy talks more than anybody, and he was losing that fight against Peter Yan all the way through. We could go through that a million times. I feel like we've touched on it almost every episode of the show, how Aljamain is just such a joke in the UFC right now. But I just think that was the only reason for them was just, let's put up two guys who never fought the last champ. I know for a fact that Justin Gaethje will be back. He'll get another win somewhere. He has to fight someone other than a champ right now. Like, that's just how this sport works. You have to pay your dues, and then you get that championship bout. He had his chance. He lost. It's just tough to throw him out there right now. But with that being said, talking about this title fight, sorry, Mike Chandler, that was rough to watch, man. Charles Oliveira, who would have thought that a win for him would have come by knockout? I mean, I was thinking that the only way that he wins this fight was submission. He almost had it at one point, too. Chandler had him in a not pretty good, it was a half guard guillotine, which everybody's like, yo, how does a guy like why does he think that he's going to beat a guy like Charles Oliveira with a half guard guillotine? But he's lost to two in the past. This would have been number 3. So in terms of just tactics and what Chandler was thinking out there, very well thought out fight, but he did get clipped by that one shot that really put him on his heels and put him up against the fence for a complete onslaught from Charles. I'm a big Chandler fan. I think another fight that you could make, honestly, would be Beneil versus Chandler. I think that would be a very good fight to watch. And you
I think it's going to be largely depending on just how soon these guys want to fight, and that's kind of the variable. That's the X factor here. That really the only the UFC knows.
Yeah.
Beneil's having a baby girl in a couple weeks. Hopefully, he gets his Tesla. Also, let's give credit to Beneil.
Oh
Dude,
yeah.
he won me over as a fan. I wasn't a huge fan of him. I wasn't very high on him coming in because of that kind of nonchalant attitude. But come on, how funny, how awesome was that post-fight interview with Joe Rogan, and how great was he at the post-fight press conference too, giving Tony all the credit, being like, "Hey, listen, Tony's a tough guy. If you're fans of Tony, make sure you don't abandon him. He's a good fighter. He's the toughest mind in the UFC." Calling out, Elon Musk, that was hilarious.
When he started saying, "I want to call somebody out," I was at a fight party and I was like, "Yo, shh,
Shut up, yeah, who's he calling out?
hear this." I thought he was gonna actually call somebody out, like seriously. But
Mm-hmm.
that was just hilarious. Great comedic moment.
Yeah,
And in a way, I'm glad I told everyone to be quiet because everybody in the room got a
you
laugh
would have
out
missed
of it.
it. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, yeah, I would love to see Beneil fight again. I just don't think he's gonna want to. He said, November, December, and you got to appreciate that. He's having a baby girl. You got to take some time off. You don't want to go right back into a fight camp. I don't think beating a semi-old Tony at this point warrants you for a title shot right away. At least not in such a
No.
cluster of a division. So I think that would be the only way that he would try to come back, faster than he had expected, is if he got the title shot. So you take that away. Looking at these lightweight rankings, so Charles Oliveira, they haven't updated them yet. They do that on Tuesdays, but right now you have Olives as the champ. If everything stays the same, you have Poirier, then you have Gaethje, Chandler, Ferguson, McGregor. Ferguson's gonna move down. You probably figure Conor maybe stays where he is, and Beneil moves to 5. And everybody, so maybe Conor moves to 5, Beneil moves to 4, maybe Chandler moves to 5. I don't know. It's still a cluster in that division. We need these guys to fight. We just need them to fight. This whole waiting game, it's irritating. It's almost as irritating as these guys being super friendly. I know that's, the sportsmanship aspect. As the sport's getting bigger, they, maybe are telling these guys, be a little bit more nice and kind. But listen, how Tony was all over Twitter.
Yeah.
Because he was the opposite. He was the antithesis of what everybody else was doing. I want more of that. This is the fight game. The fights get sold by guys who are going to talk crap. And one of the most beautiful things about this sport is people can talk crap to each other, hype the fight up, and then at the end of a brawl, a battle, even one guy gets beaten down, you almost 99% of the time you see them dap up, they hug, they show respect. That's all in martial arts, and nothing else is really, really like that. People hold grudges at the end of a football game. Rarely ever will you be like, you know what? They outclassed me. Good for them. Usually people are mad. They're frustrated. They shake hands, but how often do the guy, they snub each other, this, that. That's always a narrative following, a bad loss or a big win, things of that nature. Very rarely do you see guys be, disrespectful to each other after the fight. So that's one of my favorite things about the sport, is they can talk shit and then they can come back and they can embrace and they can show mutual respect and all of that. Even Conor and Diaz did it after their second fight that went to decision. It was like a mutual, like, all right, you can hang, I can hang. Good fight, brother. There's that picture of them kind of, embracing, kind of with their arm around each other. I love that. That's one of my favorite parts, but that's not as like exciting, or it's not as like motivating, or it doesn't give you the warm and fuzzies if they're not pitted against each other, button heads beforehand. So I want to see guys, talk shit. I want to see Justin Gaethje call somebody out. I want to see Justin Gaethje go, you know what? Screw this. I'm fighting everyone. I should be the number 1 contender. I should be next in line. Screw Conor. He's been out. He's got 1 loss. The only person I've lost to is the best lightweight potentially ever. Like, let me get back in there. Let me show what I've been working on. Instead, he's making freaking training videos with Trevor Whitman. Well, come on, brother. Let's fight. You only have, he's 30, it's like 30, 32, 33, 34. I mean, we've seen it. You talked about it last week. And Dana said it, Father Time catches up to these guys. It's not the same for everybody. So you don't know when your time is coming. Justin Gaethje, especially a guy who likes to trade blows, as soon your chin goes, and we saw it with Tony, if it goes, it kind of goes.
Yeah.
These guys need to have a little more urgency to fight. What was that, Keith?
Who knows how much time Justin Gaethje really has left at this level of just absolute like dominant performance, on his feet at least. But maybe he's taking that mentality like, yeah, I just fought the best lightweight of all time, potentially only lost to him, and that's why I'm deserving to wait for a title shot. Just giving you that devil's advocate point of view, probably what Ali has in his ear right now, because we know that guy loves to just get his fighters like, you know, he loves to talk to him and get him feeling all weird. But yeah, I think just not to talk about Beneil too much, but I think Justin Gaethje with him would be the fight to make. You can elevate both of those guys really. Like Beneil wins that, he's now en route for the title. Justin Gaethje wins that, his next fight would be the belt, in my opinion. But maybe you put Beneil against the loser of Dustin and Connor. I don't know.
I was gonna say maybe Chandler gets the loser of Dustin Connor.
That would be a smart move too, because he was talking about when he beat Dan Hooker how badly he wanted to fight McGregor.
Everybody wants to fight McGregor, but is it because they think they can beat McGregor? Probably. It's because it's a money fight, dude.
Yeah.
And it's not like, oh, I want to fight him because of status. But also, listen, a lot of people think that just because, somebody came in and chopped Connor's leg and had a nice check left hook, that Connor's dead and gone.
Right.
I can't wait to see Connor, because this is really a prove-it fight for him, right? Everyone, not everybody, but there's a lot of people counting Connor out because he lost to the number one contender. I mean, listen, Dustin's really good, and Connor made mistakes in that fight, but let's not forget, Connor had clipped Dustin. Connor looked pretty good in that first round. It was the second round that did him in. He did look good in that first round. If he gets back to that karate stance, keep him at distance, he does have the reach advantage in many of these fights. If he can keep him at distance, the active front leg, I've been preaching this. Listen, there's two types of guys who are going to be really, really successful moving forward. Not to say that other people can't, but generally speaking, you're going to have really, really good wrestlers, a.k.a. Khabib Nurmagomedov, and really good karate kind of distance, active front legs. Your shorter, stockier guys, they're going to try to get in, grab the leg, double leg takedown, single leg takedown, use low hips and keep you on the ground and beat you up there. Or you're going to have guys who are a little bit more distance and try to use the active front leg to kick you and, use that teep kick. And that plays to Connor's strength. Being 31, 32 years old, it's not like you can say he hit a wall yet. I'm really interested to see Conor McGregor here. I wouldn't say it's necessarily a make or break it fight for his career, but geez, it's going to be really hard to come back if he takes 2 losses back-to-back to Dustin Poirier. That being said, Conor's never lost 2 MMA fights back-to-back. He's never lost to the same guy twice. I think he's really smart. I would pick him to win the fight, but I don't know. That's not one that I would lock. I can't wait to talk about it as we get closer.
See that as closer for sure, because there are a lot of variables for that fight that we'll only see as time goes on. If Conor does go back to that karate style, it's so perfect for him. I was rewatching the fight against, you can't even call it a fight, just utter domination against Jose Aldo. And that 1 minute, he's just bouncing back and forth, karate style, front kick to the front leg.
And then Jose Aldo comes in, pop left hook, left hook, or wait, no, it was right hook, sorry. And
how do you just wrestling guys at a distance? It's with great kicking and just great distance management. So yeah, you're right. Those karate guys, if on a whole, we can.
I was gonna say also the way you beat someone with a better gas tank is by those teep kicks to the body. When your stomach hurts, it's really hard to take those deep breaths and get your air even in between rounds. And that's why, listen, I think Conor from here on out, if he can have that active front leg, I really see him winning a lot of second round, maybe third round fights. He looks to be in great shape. He looks to be in just as good a shape as ever. I wouldn't take him at 170, but
big if from him because he is trying to be more of a boxer now in his later stage in his career. So that's not really working out for him. I hope that he sees the same thing that we see and goes, well, let me go karate style. But I don't know, man. If he decides to come out as a boxer against Dustin Poirier is going to get that W again. But only time will tell, man. That's going to be an exciting fight. I'm really looking forward to July for the UFC.
Mm-hmm.
But, yeah, you're right. I think that the loser of that matchup should definitely go on to face Chandler. You give Chandler you give him another opportunity to beat another guy in those top couple of rankings because that's a guy I truly believe in this fight against Charles. 8 times out of 10, it goes Chandler's way. And that's just me. I know a lot of people disagree, and obviously it happened Saturday the way it did, so the argument is kind of a moot point. But that dude Chandler, he looked really good in the first round. He clipped Charles a lot.
Got him in trouble.
Yeah, he had him in a lot of scary moments where I was up out of my seat yelling, "Go Mike, go Mike, go Mike." Unfortunately, he just got clipped by one really, really good one right on the button, and it put him on his heels, allowed him to get up against the fence, and Charles just took over from there. Charles in charge, man. I hate seeing him with that belt. I hate it. As a big Mike Chandler fan, it just makes me so upset. I keep thinking every time I see a picture of that dude, I'm like, yo, that should be my boy. That should be my guy. I feel like my team just lost the Super Bowl or something. But Mike Chandler is truly a guy that I believe, he is a top level fighter in MMA. And he's going to get a couple of victories, with some of those dudes in the top 5, and he'll be back. He'll be back before we know it.
Well, hey, Charles, he got those veneers, and he's been kicking ass. Connor just got veneers.
Who knows?
Yeah.
You got to protect those fake teeth, right?
Yeah, go again. Another reason, go back to the kickboxing style, or go back to the karate style. Keep people at distance. Watch the teeth. Maybe they're bright. Under those lights, he gives the guy a smile. What was that? Bang, hits him with a nice left. You never know.
A little Chip Skylark, my shiny teeth and me.
Exactly.
Yeah, those veneers can be a little expensive, so you have to protect those. But you're right, man. And dude, this guy Charles, I don't see him holding that belt for much longer. Maybe against the winner of Dustin and Connor, because Dustin is definitely a way better jiu-jitsu guy than Connor is. But say Connor wins that fight and goes on to fight Charles. Charles is going to put him in a guillotine, or he's going to have him in a triangle choke within a matter of minutes, and it won't be a fight that anybody really wants to see, unless, like we were saying, Connor gets back to that karate style and can find a way to manage distance. But even Charles' striking looked really good. That's just point in fact. Like, he wouldn't have won this fight with a knockout if he wasn't getting better on his feet. You can credit that to shoot boxing, that gym that he trains out at.
Shoot the box.
Yeah, but who knows, man? I just can't see him after his next fight, which will probably be either Dustin or Connor. You put him up against a guy, say Beneil goes for a little bit of a run, continues that win streak, you put him up against that guy, I feel like that's a very evenly matched fight. Sorry to keep talking about Beneil, but, that's my guy now. I was a fan of his going into this, and especially after that victory. When you get a guy that is willing to go out there, do it nonchalantly, and then make a joke out of it afterwards, like, it's so entertaining.